afraid of the dark.
Hello, dear listener. Surely you have heard and know some urban legends. Today I have selected some of the frightening legends for you. Happy listening. Once, a foreigner was singing Frank Sinatra's My Way at karaoke in the middle of the night but was shot in the head before he could finish. He had taken the microphone from a person who had requested the song, and that person turned out to be his killer. Since then, bar patrons across the country avoid choosing My Way at karaoke at night, fearing that their life might end before they finish the song, due to an unknown person with a gun who roams the bars every night. Once there was a story about a young girl who went for a drink with a guy after her work shift. She agreed, but first she wanted to go home to change clothes. When she got home, she saw her roommate sleeping and quietly took a few things without waking her. The next morning she returned to find that her roommate had been brutally murdered. On the mirror, written in lipstick, was "Bet you're glad you didn't turn on the light last night below," and a slightly darker lipstick "Happy now, sucker." It turned out that the son killed his father, and the grandfather, learning about this, killed the grandson and made him carry the father's body in a sack. They say the quieter the whistle, the closer he is. In my town, there was a foggy road. One late evening in the 80s, a girl was driving on this road, and suddenly her car broke down. She stopped and got out to check the engine. At that moment, a large truck drove by, illuminating her with its lights. The girl was scared that the driver wanted her to stop and decided not to get out of the car. She drove on and the truck followed her, constantly flashing its lights. The girl didn't stop and finally arrived home. The truck driver yelled at her, "Get out of there. I saw someone get into your car when you stopped. He's hiding there." Once there was a story about a young girl who went for a drink with a guy after her work shift. She agreed, but first she wanted to go home to change clothes. When she got home, she saw her roommate sleeping and quietly took a few things without waking her. The next morning she returned to find that her roommate had been brutally murdered. On the mirror, written in lipstick, was "Bet you're glad you didn't turn on the light last night below," in a slightly darker lipstick, "Happy now, sucker." It turned out that the son killed his father, and the grandfather, learning about this, killed the grandson and made him carry the father's body in a sack. They say the quieter the whistle, the closer he is. In my town, there was a foggy road. One late evening in the 80s, a girl was driving on this road, and suddenly her car broke down. She stopped and got out to check the engine. At that moment, a large truck drove by, illuminating her with its lights. The girl was scared that the driver wanted her to stop and decided not to get out of the car. She drove on, and the truck followed her, constantly flashing its lights. The girl didn't stop and finally arrived home. The truck driver yelled at her, "Get out of there. I saw someone get into your car when you stopped. He's hiding there." Once at a party, a woman met a pleasant man, and they arranged a date for the next day. But the following morning, she developed a strange rash in her mouth and went to the doctor. It turned out that this rash appears after contact with dead, decomposing bodies. The man turned out to be a serial killer who enjoyed engaging in activities with dead women after he killed them. In the Blue Mountains of Australia, they say a black panther resides. Many of my relatives and friends have seen these panthers. Park rangers have also warned about the presence of panthers in this area. In Pennsylvania, near the town of Hellam, lie the so-called 7 gates of hell. There used to be an asylum for the mentally ill built to keep patients away from society. It is believed that the asylum burned down and many patients escaped into the woods. The 7 gates were built to prevent the patients from escaping. They say that if you pass through all 7 gates at night, you will end up in hell. On the island of Okinawa in Japan, there is a house where a man killed himself and his entire family. They say he appears in the dreams of the locals. Paranormal activities occur and the house lights turn on suddenly, and sometimes you can see a woman washing her hair in the sink through the window. The scariest part is that the house is fenced off, and children from a nearby kindergarten constantly throw toys over the fence. When asked why they do this, the children reply that they want to play with the children who live on the other side of the fence. At the end of World War II, a Japanese officer voluntarily went into complete isolation to study the effects of isolation on the mind. He could cancel the experiment at any time by pressing a button. After a month, the food stopped coming, and the officer pressed the button, but nothing happened. He realized he was likely trapped in his room. To keep his sanity, he began repeating the date and the name of the place where he was underground base in Hiroshima, August 20th, 1945. The indigenous people of Australia tell stories of hairy men, ape-like creatures called yoes, which are considered blood-sucking beings that eat people. The Aboriginals were very afraid of them. They say yoes will stalk you, watching from the bushes, and can move very quickly. In Australia, there are also legends about drop bears, which watch you from trees or bushes and then pounce on you, ripping your throat with their sharp teeth. In Jakarta, there is an urban legend about a ghost woman who hails a taxi. There are several versions of this story, but I'll tell the one I heard from the driver himself. He got a request from a woman late at night. Usually, taxi drivers don't take orders at such times for safety reasons, but this driver needed extra points for a bonus, so he accepted the request. The destination was near a well-known cemetery complex. The driver picked up the girl, and they drove off. Throughout the trip, the girl remained silent. When they arrived at the destination, the driver asked where to drop her off, but she didn't respond. He looked in the mirror and saw that the girl was gone. But the scariest part was yet to come. He looked around and realized he was inside the cemetery complex. He hurried to the exit and went into the nearest 24-hour coffee shop. The shop owner asked him what he was doing at the cemetery at 1 a.m. The driver checked his phone and realized that there had never been an order from the girl. Not far from the place where I grew up, there is a lake. I heard a story about a groom who once drowned his bride there. They say that at a certain time of night she rises from the water, and if your car is parked near the lake, she might place her hand on your windshield. If she suddenly pulls her hand away, leaving an imprint on the glass, it is an omen of death. Children often touch the glass, and when it gets cold, handprints appear, scaring them. I don't know if this story's true, but one thing is certain: you will die. This will happen with a 99% probability. In my hometown, there was once a witch trial. 2 women were accused and 1 was hanged. It turned out that her grave was located near my friend's house. One night, she saw a woman with long black hair covering her face, looking towards her bedroom. We also have an abandoned military fort from the War of Independence, where a young man was strangled by an invisible force. His friends witnessed this event. Since then, no one dares to go there at night. Once, a guy got lost while hiking in the forest and found a log cabin. He knocked, but no one answered. The door was unlocked, and he went inside. The cabin had one room with a bed and many paintings of monsters and beastly faces on the walls. The guy decided to spend the night there. The next morning, as he was getting ready to leave, he noticed that the scary paintings had disappeared and were replaced by windows. This story always scared me to death. A nanny was putting the children to bed in a house with a clown statue in the hallway. It scared her a bit. A few hours later, the nanny noticed that the statue had changed its pose. She started to suspect something and decided to call the children's parents to ask if everything was okay. The parents asked if the children were frightened, to which the nanny replied that everything was fine except for the clown statue, which bothered her. But the parents said they had no clown statue. The nanny heard creepy music and screams, "Grab the clown and get out of the house." "We have no children," the nanny heard a voice on the phone. "Get the hell out, clown. We have no."